My name's Lisa Calle, and I'm here with Moda Fabrics and the Moda Bake Shop. I bet that most of you are big fans of Moda Fabrics and probably the Moda Bake Shop. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Moda Bake Shop, I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. It's a blog run by Moda Fabrics that shows you how to use our fabulous line of pre-cuts. The fat quarter bundle, the layer cake, the jelly roll, and our newest pre-cut, the honeycomb. We also have these Moda candy, which is a 2.5-inch square. You might also heard these called mini charms, and we're giving these away. This is a new line that's coming out in March called PB&J by Basic Gray. Super cute fabric. And there are probably a few other different lines in there. Today I'm going to show you how to create some modern blocks with layer cakes and with the honeycomb. This is the quilt I'm going to demonstrate. This quilt used about one layer cake. It uses about 90% of the layer cake and then about a yard of fabric. I added in a red solid and a green and a little bit of a gray. This is also an upcoming fabric line called Aspen Frost by Basic Gray that will be available I think in April or May. It's their Christmas line for this year. And to make these blocks I'm using Bonnie and Camille's new line, Happy Go Lucky, which is also super cute fabric. I'll show you a few of the prints here. And I like to use about 4 layer cakes. It's kind of a stack and whack method. I'm going to grab a contrasting color so you can really see what I'm doing here. This green. And I'm making a bigger quilt with this. These layer cakes are 10-inch squares, so your blocks are going to finish about 9.5 inches. I went a little bit smaller on these because when you add in several different layer cakes, the more curved pieces you add, the smaller your block ends up. So these are 8.5-inch finished size, and that's what I'm working with here. So I've got 4 different colors. I'm using a few layer cakes from our Bella Basics, the navy, which I think is an Admiral blue, the bright white, and Robin's egg blue. And we've picked the solids that coordinate really beautifully with most of our lines that we offer in the layer cakes, in the jelly rolls, and also in the honeycombs. So I'm going to stack these on top of each other. I'm going to show you how to piece these 2 ways, both without pinning, because nobody likes to take time to pin. You see that? And the key to this is slow and even pressure. I'm using my 60mm rotary cutter because this bigger blade gives me a little bit more control on that curve, and it also cuts through these layers of fabric better. And always start a project like this with a new blade. And keep your hand well away from the blade. I'm sure everybody's had those little mishaps. All quilters seem to have that little bit missing from there. And I like to do a wide, just with a big arch. The tighter you do these, the harder they're going to be to smooth out. So big curves are best for this type of piecing. And the key to the pinless method is a lot of heavy starch and a very hot iron. Because we're working with a bias on these curves here, you're going to want to starch these cuts that we've just made. And I just fan them out like this. This is one of my favorite sewing tools. It makes every block look like you pieced it perfectly. And I'm just adding it to the parts that I've cut. Let that soak in. So how many of you are already readers of the Moda Bake Shop? Is that me? Yes. Is that someone else or is that me? All right. No, this is just improv curve piecing. I'm going to grab 2 different pieces. I love this green. I think it would be super cute with this. Robin's egg blue is what this color is called. And I like to start with the this curve on the bottom, just because it's a larger piece. It's a little bit easier to control with your hand. And then the inner curved piece on the top. Right sides together, and you want to line up your edge so you've got about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch where it actually lines up, can see that on there. And I'm using just my regular 1/4 inch foot here. I've got my machine speed turned down to about half. These are not speedy blocks. The quilt does sew very quickly, but you want to take your care matching up these seams. And I'm very gently with my hand just guiding this bottom fabric, holding the top fabric away and open, and just making sure they line up with each other and this 1/4 inch foot. And you just sort of very gently ease it in. No tugging, no pulling. When I was working on this quilt, my husband came in and he's like, "Is that the hardest quilt you've ever made?" With that intense concentration face. There. And you could do this with pins, but it's much faster pin-free. And that's about as much waste as you get with this. I'm going to press that. This is where I add even more starch. I like my quilt top to just stand up after I'm finished. I started quilting in about 2009, and the Moda Bake Shop was actually the first resource that I used. I told this story at the demo yesterday. I wanted to make a quilt for my mom, and I decided I'd buy a jelly roll because it has a whole line of fabric all in one. What a perfect way to jump into quilting. If I didn't like it, I hadn't bought all this yardage that I wouldn't be able to use. But the mistake I made was I pre-washed the jelly roll. So it kind of took all the ease out of the pre-cut. So here is my block with one curve in it, and if I want to add another piece, I'm just going to do the same thing. Layer on another print on top. I always like to make mine contrast. This would be really cute with that. And I follow this same curve. I put the piece I've already worked on, line up the edges as best I can, and then I'm going to carefully, here, because I'm not trying to match the curve, I'm going to add a little bit of interest with a different shape. Maybe start narrow and get a little bit wider and go narrow again. And you can go back, I save all these weird pieces and go back and add them to your other curves, and that's why there's so very little waste in this project. Again, I want to starch these, and I'm going to show you this one with the Curve Master, which is another way to sew this block without pins. Lots of starch. Try not to move too much. Okay. The Curve Master is a foot that is carried by United Notions, and this part is a Bernina part. This is the Curve Master foot, and it is the same kind of idea, being able to sew curves without pinning. You also match it up just the same way you do with your regular foot. Line up those first piece. Oh, I didn't get that on there. There. And you're going to take a couple of stitches, make sure it's in there. And this is the same kind of technique. Hold your top fabric up and just gently guide it up against the edge of the foot. I do feel like I can go a little bit faster with the Curve Master. The key is just to keep it from bunching up as it's going under the foot. I don't know that it's a better foot, but if you aren't used to sewing without pins, this makes it easier, I think, than guiding it with your hand, because this does a lot of this. The foot actually kind of pivots it for you, whereas with the other foot, I was doing that work. It's called the Curve Master. Yeah. And if you haven't stopped by our Moda Bake Shop booth, we're over there in booth 100. We've got a really fun photo booth that you all must get your picture taken at before you leave the show. We've got fun props, fake mustaches, funny chalkboard signs. We're also doing a giveaway that you can sign up for. And so it's the same kind of look. And here you can see, I'm going to want to push those flat again with my favorite friend starch in the hot iron. I don't. You can, but I just find that the starch in a heavy iron really is easier than going back in there. And this is not even a heavy iron, but I'm really not, because the starch, I'll make it lay flat, and then when I piece them together, I've got a sample down here I can show you. This is a few of these blocks I've started to put together. Once I square them up and starch them, they lay pretty flat.
So you don't know what size the block is going to be until you're done and cut it smaller?
I determine if you are adding more and more, then you probably will want to go with a smaller finish size. I like to maximize the use of the whole layer cake, so I want to stay around 9.5 to 9 inches unfinished size. And you can always add on. I always work with my the 9.5 inch template, and then with this block, this is 9 inches. You can tell by looking at it. So I'm going to add in a 4th. See where I am on here. Put my ones in the far corner. And you can see I can add on another layer cake underneath here. Grab one of these little prints. And I can add on another layer cake and follow that curve or do a new curve to make this meet up. And then I'll save that other piece and mix it with something else. This quilt top it's a really quick project. I pieced that whole top in about a long afternoon, 4 or 5 hours is what it took me. And there's really very little waste. So it's a fun, quick project. It will be on the Moda Bake Shop. Yes, absolutely. Now I'd like to show you our newest pre-cut, the Honeycomb. Right now this is available in our Bella Solids colors, or our Bella Basics colors. There's a bright white, a cream, the black, brown, red, and a navy, and a gray. And these are a 6-inch point-to-point laser cut hexagons. You might be more familiar with the side measurement of the hexagons. These are 3-inch sides. So it's a large hexagon, which makes it perfect for piecing with the machine. This has been pieced with Y seams here. Right now it's available in the Bella Solids, and it will be available in a few more months in some of our upcoming lines. There's a Christmas line that has it. This is B&Co's new line, Simply Style, that will be available in the Honeycombs. This line here, Bonnie and Camille's Happy Go Lucky, will be available in Honeycombs. I made this pillow over here. And this was a super quick project. From start to finish, this probably took me, again, a long afternoon, even with all the quilting and everything. This is just an example of all the cute things you can do with these new honeycombs. And this is a good starter project if you're new to Y seams. It's good to start with something small like this. And this line here is PB&J, which a few of you probably got in your little mini charms. The brilliant thing about these honeycombs is most of our pre-cuts come back with cardboard. These are back with template plastic so that you can cut yardage to add. And they have pre-drilled holes to mark your start and stop points when you're sewing. Probably see that on here. These little pre-drilled holes. Makes it really easy. I'm using just a Sharpie pen to mark it. But you probably want to use something that's water soluble. I'm just have an affinity for these pens. I just lay my template right on top, put dots at my points. And once you've done these a few times, you probably won't even need to mark if your sewing machine has the 1/4 inch points on the foot. The key to these is to not use the starch in the iron when you're piecing them together. And I find they go together most quickly if you're doing it in rows. You can also do it in sections. They're working like this. There's a really great modern quilt in the Moda Bake Shop booth using these brand new honeycombs. And it was a project that was published on the Moda Bake Shop just last week, introducing these pre-cuts by Lisa Alexander. And you can go and take a look at the quilt. It's hanging in our booth today. No, the key to these is no starch, because you want to keep your seams nice and loose. So I'm going to start with two side by side. You can see how I've done here. I'll start with these two, and then I'll nest in this red one. Here I'm using the brown and the cream and the robin's egg blue. Switch my foot back to my 1/4 inch foot. Start with my straight sides. And you do want to do a little lock stitch at the beginning and end of these to keep your seams from being too loose. And if you have them loose, you sometimes will have a hole when you pull it apart. You can very easily go back and add another stitch to close that up. And I'm just going to finger press these open. And the reason I'm not starching these yet is because I want them to be able to have that movement and that give. See it nest in here like this? So you put your right sides together and match up that corner. And again, start a 1/4 inch in to your lock stitch. And then when I get to this other point, again, I'm going to do my lock stitch, go forward a little bit, put my needle down, and I'm going to pivot this top fabric over and match up the corner with my other hexagon. And I like to have a little tool like scissors or a tweezer to make sure I straighten out these pieces underneath. And check and make sure you don't have any lumps under there. Lock stitch at the end. And here is the finished. And now I'll press it and you can see that it lays pretty flat. And these seem intimidating, but they're actually very easy to work with. The large size it can help you piece together a quilt really quickly. And I'm pressing I wasn't really taking care of it, but I would press light to dark and see it, they've nested in. I really didn't do anything special just then thinking, because the way that you piece it, it actually laid really nicely. It does the work for you. It's quilting that quilts itself, almost. So there you can see those. There's so many things that you can do with these new honeycombs. Here's an example where it's a log cabin style with the gray honeycombs at the center and some jelly roll strips, which are 2.5 inch pre-cut in a layer in a what's the word? Log cabin style. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really cute. This is a fun way to use the solids. This is not on there yet. These are all upcoming lines, so we won't show them for a few more months, but there will be a lot more. A lot of the chefs of the Moda Bake Shop have really great projects planned with these. There's a lot of different things you can do with the honeycombs. They're really fun to add into just a pillow project like that, or any kind of small sewing. They're great to combine just a few of them together, add a little applique or something on a skirt. Thank you guys for coming.